Hi guys, so welcome everybody to what will be ACH number 8, I believe it is, 7 or 8. I'm glad to have you all here. We have a full house of people ready to go. We're going to get started in the next couple of minutes. We'll do some housekeeping rules first, guys. This is being recorded right now. How it'll work is once the recording is being completed, this is a 3-day training. Probably by the end of next week, this will be uploaded into Kajabi. You guys will have access to it amongst all the other trainings as well. The biggest housekeeping rule is if my internet drops out, don't stress. Fritz is basically in charge. She'll just tell you guys to wait and I'll just be able to enter the call again. If your internet drops out, don't worry. Just go back to the Facebook group, press on the link again. That link will stay active all day. You can re-enter this. Some people I know have clients. Great job. You're welcome to leave the training, come back, just use that same link. Also realize we are recording this as well, like I mentioned. Just be aware when your microphone's on and off. Be aware when your camera's on and off, okay? If we hear any feedback from the microphones, I will mute you. You can unmute yourself later on. But if you get up and you go do other things or you run around after your kids because they're being a pain in the ass, just realize we might be recording that. So just be aware of your camera as well, okay? Now, moving into the training, let's look at this principle first. What I'm going to teach you over the 2 days plus the bonus day, I'll go through I'll go through the certification thing on day 3. Don't worry about that for now. The biggest thing I want you guys to wrap your minds around is everything you've learned in the past is fine. Please do not bring this into this training because it will not make sense to what I'm going to teach you, because it's going to conflict with a lot of the stuff you've been taught. But the reason that's important is because if I just brought you along and taught you the same old stuff you've been taught before, what would be the point, right? Who's been to those trainings before where you sort of like, they promise you all of these big fancy things. There's some cool little interesting names for all the techniques. You go into the training, you look back and say, hang on, I've already learned that stuff before. It was just a different script. It was just a different way to relax my client. It was the same metaphors. It was the same affirmations. It was the same regressions. Who's been to something like that before? It's pretty common. So when you hear me call out and I say something like, look at the traditional stuff, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, because this is not a very symmetrical training. This is what we call asymmetric, which means that you'll be doing less, but your clients will be getting more. Who likes the sound of that? Less time with clients, more outcomes, less work for you. I'm essentially, for lack of better words, going to make you the laziest therapist in the world. Because ironically, the less you do with your clients, the bigger the breakthrough they have. Sounds strange, doesn't it? Okay. Because some of the biggest flaws I see with the more traditional stuff is everybody's in such a rush to try and get things done. We put so much pressure on ourselves, would you guys agree with this, where my client has paid me X amount of dollars, they have to get a result. Who's had that chat with themselves before? Okay, you start stressing out about it. You start putting pressure on yourself. You start preparing, you start thinking, you start overanalyzing. You sort of psych yourself up into this confident warrior going into the session. Your client sits down in front of you and what happens? Your mind goes blank. Or they say something like, hey, hey, Matt, I told you on the phone I wanted to do stop smoking. Can we do weight loss instead today? Who's had that before? That is a pain. So all that prep work moving into that becomes a waste. So what if by the end of this 3 days, you guys never had to prepare again, ever? Literally, if Fritz was my therapist, we could do the call. I could pay her $2.5 grand. And then I might say, hey, I can only do this now. She can go, great, let's go. What's the problem? Instead of, no, I need 6 days to be able to prepare a script that's 19 pages long. Just bear with me. I'll see you in 6 days. Okay. So who'd be happy to never have to put the pressure on themselves to solve a client's problem again? I know we all say we don't do it, but everybody does it. And it's the worst thing you can do. Who likes the idea of never having to learn a language pattern again? Who likes the idea of never having to worry about what therapy to do? Who likes the idea of not ever having to worry about what technique, what timeline, what regression, what word, what do I say per certain people? Who would like to just go into the sessions, just absolutely mind blank and be okay with it, and basically figure out what to do on the fly? Who likes the sound of that? Well, if you don't, that's what we're going to do. So you have to learn to enjoy it. Cool, guys. Okay. So can I just leave my hand up for the next 15 minutes? Is that, yeah, because you'll have a lot of questions. So what will happen as well, guys, if you've got questions, we'll have plenty of time for Q&As. Does everyone know where the little hand button is? Does everyone know? I don't even know where it is. So Fritz, do you know where that's actually, that people can put their hand up? Do you know where that little thing is?
Yeah, it's in the reactions, like in the very bottom. Okay. There's like a smiley face with a plus, and then you click on that. Okay. And raise hand. Okay, there you go. So everyone knows where it is. So when we do Q&As, we'll do it that way, but there'll be plenty of time for that as well. Wow, 108 people. That's awesome. All right, so the best place for us to start is this. We're going to start from scratch with this thing we call ACH. By the end of the third day, you'll have the entire process, okay? Oh, actually, I did have some notes I just wanted to mention. So when we get into the demos, guys, which I'm going to stop talking very soon, we're going to get into the demos. That's done. Sorry, guys, make sure everyone got into the training. Yep. All right. So with the demos, guys, realize we only have a certain amount of time and probably a lot of people wanting to do demos. When it comes to the demos, there is no guarantee we're going to start from scratch and go all the way through. I might stop the demo halfway through, which means that we might not have solved your problem. This is not a training where you're going to get free therapy from me. Okay, a lot of people try and get in and do that. Not going to happen. If we manage to have a breakthrough with you, fantastic. If we don't, who cares? You have 480 people to practice with. Is everyone on the same page with me for that? So don't be disgruntled or pissed off if you don't get the demo all the way through. My job over the 2 days plus the third day is to show you guys the strategy. Okay, if you guys just want to sit here and watch me do therapy on people, that's pretty fucking boring and you will not learn anything. Okay, I want you guys to do the work. Secondly, as well, please do your best to refrain from messaging me on Facebook over the next 3 days. I will not be answering them. Okay, this takes a lot to get through. When this is done, I'm done for the day. I turn my laptop off. Please don't message me with questions. I'm happy to answer them later, but I'd rather just you put them in the Facebook group and somebody else can answer them because this becomes quite tiring. Like I said, be aware of your camera on and off and the feedback from your mic. Okay, everyone cool with that? Okay, so the best place for us to start is right at the beginning. Let me ask you guys this as a question. You're going to love this part. Where do all of our problems exist? Everyone yell it out to me. Are they conscious, unconscious, superconscious, subconscious? Unconscious. Okay, perfect. I agree. Now, there's no difference between unconscious, subconscious, superconscious. It's all this. It's you. It's all the same thing. It's just anything outside of your awareness. So when a client, let's say Harry's my client, Harry comes into my office and I'm going to start with, and I'll show you guys how to do this. I'll start with the typical ACH way of doing things, which is asking Harry, what's the problem? What do you want to work on? Now, Harry's going to respond to that question. What's the response that Harry's going to give me that could either be the make or break for the session? What's the information that Harry is going to talk about in regards to his problem? Anyone have an idea?
Conscious information.
Conscious information. Yeah. Okay. It's basically Harry's best guess. So if Harry says, I want to quit smoking, or Harry says, I've got anxiety, or Harry says, I've got relationship problems, or Harry says, I've got mindset blocks. From this point forward, guys, as soon as your client tells you what their problem is, they are lying to you. Don't listen to them. Doesn't that make sense? Because if a client's telling me what their problem is, they're telling me their conclusion. They're telling me a symptom. Would everyone agree with that? Mm-hmm. Okay. How can a client's conscious mind penetrate the unconscious? The unconscious locks off that stuff for a reason, which we all know about. We'll get into a little bit later. So anytime a client comes in, even on the strategy call and says, you know, my problem's this, my problem's that, smile internally and say, aha, that's not it. Which means that I don't have to prepare. Because what am I preparing for? 90% of what my client tells me is just their conclusion, is just a symptom. Does that make sense, guys? So if your client books in for an anxiety session, what the hell are you preparing for an anxiety session for? What are you preparing for a stop smoking session for? It's not what you're going to fix anyway. Everyone's aware of the whole symptom thing, right? Everybody in this class right now, all 110 of us, all have problems
that we experience that we've tried to fix. And we all know it's because we're trying to fix the symptom that the problem doesn't go away. Okay, so this is where ACH really excels, because I'm going to show you how to find what the real thing is. Now, on top of this, you also have to let go of the thought of, well, all problems exist because of anxiety. That's a guess. Okay, all problems exist because of childhood trauma. That's a guess. All problems exist because of this, this, and this. As soon as you start adopting that attitude and you go into a session believing that, what are you now doing? Any ideas?
Well,
You're assuming.
Yeah, you're going to limit the conversation because you're trying to take it one way and they're trying to take it another way. And all of a sudden your client at the end goes, hey, Crystal, I feel the exact same. I want my money back. Because Crystal was too busy trying to steer it towards, oh, it's anxiety, because that's what Tony Robbins said it was. So it's always anxiety. Everybody on the face of this planet has different thoughts, ideas, reasons, likes, wants, dislikes, and strange reasons why they created problems. And that's where it gets interesting and fun. Okay, so when I work with smokers, as you guys all know, I never once helped someone quit smoking. Isn't that cool? Not once. What happened was I found the real root cause, and there was some crazy root causes where the fun is that took care of the smoking for itself. I don't know how to help someone quit smoking. That's a lot of pressure. So if you ever find yourself with this understanding going to a session where you're putting a pressure on yourself thinking, oh, I don't really like stop smoking sessions, you're not doing it anyway. So there's nothing to not like. Now, this brings up some sort of legal things where I want you guys, and please do this. You'll have to do the research for yourself. You have to stay inside the scope, because you'll realize pretty quickly that ACH can pretty much help pretty much everything, but you have to stay inside your scope, okay? Legally, and just to do the right thing as a therapist where your place of practice is, there's going to be certain things that you shouldn't be working with anyway. But there's also realizing that it's not so much how you use ACH in all these types of different ways, it's what can happen afterwards. So someone who deals with like domestic violence may use ACH in a very powerful way, but how do you have to support that person after they leave the session? Are you legally obligated? You see where I'm sort of going, guys? Same thing with alcoholism. A lot of you guys taught me a lot about that, and I thank you for that. If someone goes from being a heavy alcoholic to not drinking, that can cause a lot of health issues. I wasn't aware of that. Okay, smoking could also have that, drugs as well. So please stay inside your scope. Does that make sense with everybody? But at the same token, realize, man, ACH can pretty much help everything, because everything your client tells you is an absolute lie. Okay, all right. So in saying that, let's start with, oh, I've got an email. This would be someone. Okay, no, all good. The best place for us to start is what I call the hypnotic interview. This is the place where you're going to spend a lot of your time. We're going to spend a lot of time on day one in this place right here, because realize this, and hopefully the ones that have done ACH for a while can attest to this. The better you get at finding the root cause, the problem will take care of itself. Pretty cool, right? It's quite interesting that when you find the real root cause and a client has that, oh my God, this is what it is, you don't have to do a thing except just let them be in that place, and the mind will take care of itself. So if I find the root cause, I don't have to use a regression to get rid of it. I don't have to have them see 3 scenes. I don't have to see them hug their fucking inner child. I don't have to do any of that stuff. They don't have to float above their timeline or any of those things. Our job, realizing or not, is to take them to the place where they finally get a glimpse of what the root cause is, and then we can dust our hands off and let them deal with it themselves. Isn't that a nice way to do it? Okay. It takes so much pressure off you to try and perform as the therapist. So in order for us to start in this place, let's start from scratch. We're going to do the hypnotic interview. Who would like to explore a problem they have, knowing a couple of things, that it is being recorded? We might not have a breakthrough, just the very art of doing this specifically might help a bit, but we're not going to do the testing, the therapeutic stuff, the sleep test. We're not going to do any of that stuff yet. All I want to do is find somebody where we can explore the problem they have and just see what happens. Who would be game to be the client in that perspective? Just stick your hand up. Doesn't have to be the biggest problem in the world. Okay, so Nikki Harvey, I saw your hand first. I'll get Fritz to sort that in a moment.
Who would like to be the therapist with me coaching you on the side, knowing that you're probably going to screw the entire thing up? Yeah, we will, Jim. We'll do all of that. Don't worry about that. No, all we're going to do is just explore the problem. Who would like to be that person? Okay, so Ainsley. Oh, sorry, Daniel. I did just see your hand up then. I'll get you on next. So Fritz, can you set that up? Ainsley, you'll be the therapist, and Nikki Harvey will be the client that we're going to treat respectively. Okay. So in a moment, we'll get started. Can I get everybody to turn their microphone off and turn their camera off? And we're just going to see what happens. We are going to explore the hypnotic interview, which is we're going to try and find out what this real root cause is. Okay. So everyone else, just switch your cameras off, please. Cameras and microphones off. That's it. Good, 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 good. All right. So Fritz, can you set that up for Nikki being the on highlighted? Why can't I see her?
She should be highlighted now.
Can everyone see Nikki on the screen? I can't see it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe it's just that's okay. I'm going to turn my camera off as well. Okay. All right. So Ainsley, there we go. So Ainsley, all we're going to do is we're just going to start in the same place we start with all clients, which is asking a client what their problem is. Okay. Anytime you get stuck, Ainsley, all I want you to say is, Scott, I don't know what to do. What do you recommend? Let's just do something. Yeah. Don't try and solve it because you'll screw it up. Don't put pressure on yourself because you'll screw it up. Don't get it right. Don't get it wrong. Let's just see what Nikki has to say. Okay. Go for it, guys.
Hi, Nikki.
Hi.
Hi. So what is the problem? What's your problem?
So since my son was born in 2001, I have changed. I lost all of my confidence. Initially I put it down to PTSD. Sorry, I'm in the menopause, so I can't even think of words.
Okay.
Postnatal depression, because I did get that. So I initially put everything down to that. Before I had my son, I was a really confident, outgoing career woman that anything she wanted, she went and got and did get, and nothing held me back. I didn't have any, I never questioned myself. I never not believed I could do it. I just went and did it. And the only way I can describe it, and it feels awful, and I've said it so many times, and it's how I feel. I feel that when my son was born, part of me died. I had a really traumatic birth with him, and he was poorly when he was born, and I was poorly. But I've never been the same since. And my mum has said, people close to me have said, I'm just a different person. And I feel like part of me died, like I gave birth to him. And I don't know if I'm making any sense. That's how I feel.
Okay.
And it's stopping me. It's stopping me doing all the things I want to do. And I'm not giving up, and I haven't given up over the years. I won't give up. But I've lost whatever that was that I had before that was I found easy, and now I find everything hard, and I don't have any confidence in myself, and I get so far with things, and then I put a stop on everything before it gets too difficult.
And let's pause right there. Thank you guys so far. Thank you, Nikki, for opening up. Expect this to be extremely typical with your clients. Okay. Who's experienced this before? Just give me a yes in the comments, where your client opens up and gives you a lot of information, like a ton of information. Please, at this point, don't go, oh, she said confidence. It's a confidence script I need. It's a confidence technique. I'm going to say this, Nikki, with all the respect in the world. Everything Nikki's just told us right now is absolute garbage. It's her conclusion. We could hear it in her voice. We can hear it in what she's saying. This happened, which has caused this. This happened because of this. That because word causes conclusions. All Nikki can tell us right now is, I'm experiencing this thing that I can't even put a label on. My best description of it is this. Okay, now if we go in and try and fix this, this is the symptom. Okay, this is what I mean. You cannot prepare for this stuff. That's why the traditional stuff no longer can be viewed the same way, because there's no way we can even make a conclusion. I could conclude, okay, Nikki might need some confidence. She might need a parts integration. She might need a float above her timeline. She might need to have, I don't know, a boost of excitement in her business. Could be many different conclusions I can make. But all Ainsley knows right now is Nikki's just said a lot of information. I'm just as confused as she is. I need to clarify more to know which direction the session's going to go in. Would that be your thinking as well, Ainsley? Like, it's a lot of information.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are you sitting there going, man, thank God Scott's here, otherwise I'd have no idea what to do with this?
I'm literally thinking what to ask, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to say?
And this is good. This brings on to the next point. All your job right now is, guys, you're going to hear me say this a lot, is stay really curious. Not curious how to solve the problem, but curious as to what Nikki has created. Why has she concluded these things? Why has she made this backwards rationalization? Why is her assumption like this? Instead of, I wonder how I can solve it. If you go into solve it mode, guys, you're basically going to start fixing the symptoms. So Ainsley, I'm going to ask you the question. What are you curious about based on what she's told us?
I'm curious about the part where she said that when she had a son, that she felt that a part of her died.
Yeah, that's a pretty heavy stuff. And that's exactly where I would take it. So knowing you're not going to solve the problem, how could you ask that with the least amount of words with a lot of curiosity?
Bear with me.
Remember, don't try and get it right. Just ask any question you're curious about.
Yeah. What reason did you die when your son was born? Did you feel like you died? That's it.
I think I felt out of...
I have to. Sorry, guys. I've got to jump in. Did everyone see what just happened right there? Thank you, Nikki. Did everyone see that?
Yeah.
This is what we call an unconscious moment. We jumped a little bit forward, but it's already here. She went into trance. Now, let me point something out. Was it this type of trance? Was it this type of trance? Was it go deeper, close your eyes, blah, blah, blah? No. The reason Nikki went into a very small unconscious moment, which is a trance, is because Ainsley has asked a question. We know that Nikki's problem exists in the unconscious mind. Nikki knows this as well. She's a therapist. So here's the cool thing. We've actually done two things at once. We've asked a clarifying question, but we've also said to Nikki indirectly, hey, go into your unconscious mind to retrieve that information. So we've basically said, hey, Nikki, go into trance, but we haven't said it. If we did and say, hey, Nikki, go into trance, what am I now doing? I'm telling her what to do. She doesn't want to hear that. Ask yourself, who likes to be told what to do? Nobody. So we've asked Nikki to give us more information. Thus, I've said to Nikki, hey, go into your mind, retrieve that information. What's going to happen is Nikki's going to come out. She's going to give us another conclusion, maybe some more little juicy bits. Ainsley's going to ask another question. Nikki's going to go back in and out, in and out. This is known as a fractionation. This is what Erickson was famous for. But we have actually already started the therapy. By getting clarification of the problem, you start the therapy. We call this untying the knot. If you can imagine like a shoelace that gets knotted up, that's exactly the way our minds are when we have a problem. It gets so knotted up in feelings and thoughts and conclusions and this and that and reasons and all this stuff becomes like a knot. By asking clarifying questions, you start to untie that knot. Once that knot gets untied, the resource, the aha moment, the, oh my God, that's what I need to do. That's where that comes from. Hopefully you're on board here, guys, okay? So Ainsley, you saw that clear as day. I like the process instruction, okay? But Nikki, let me ask you this, and I'll apologize, I have to jump in and out. When Ainsley asked you that question, that brief moment of trying to find the answer, what was happening to you then?
Well, actually, I noticed on my screen, because I can see myself, I noticed I'd done it because I looked down, I think.
Yep.
Which I noticed straight away. I thought, where have you gone?
Exactly. Now, did Ainsley say go into trance? This is hypnosis.
No,
Relax.
no, I noticed it straight away. I thought, my
Look at
gosh, I've just changed straight away.
Yes. Now, please don't.
And I was searching.
Yeah,
I was
searching. That's the key.
desperately trying to find the answer to what she said,
Excellent.
which I've now forgotten what she said.
And the reason she did, because she went into trance. Now, what I also want to point out, guys, this is how these 3 days are going to go. It's going to be stopping and starting. You can agree with it all you like. It doesn't really bother me, but it makes things really complicated. Just because a client looks down does not mean they're trying to find, I don't know what it is, like visual information. Because I look to the side, it's auditory, however that works. Forget about that stuff. That gets really complicated. All you have to know is Nikki has retrieved information from the place where I want her to go, which is trance hypnosis stuff. Okay. So Ainsley, I apologize for jumping in. Ask that question again, and let's just see the response that comes out.
Okay, so what reason did you feel you died when your son was born?
Yeah. I felt completely out of control. Nothing had gone as planned. The pregnancy wasn't as planned. I'd put a lot of pressure on myself. Gosh.
And pause right there. Thank you. Everyone see it happen again. We're not doing anything. But clearly there's something happening in our client. I can see it on her.
I can feel it in my stomach.
Thank you. Ainsley, you get an A.
Cool.
We're 2 questions in, and there's this idiot with glasses on that keeps interrupting me. And the client is already telling us I'm feeling something. If you
Not an excuse, Scott. I'm in the menopause, so please don't keep interrupting too much.
I'll hijack that. Okay, I'll use it all to my liking. That's fine. But realize this. A client is going somewhere where she could have not gone herself, having no one intervene. It's why it's called an intervention. You intervene the thoughts. We're 2 questions in, guys. And we're heading to the same place that most traditional therapists would spend half an hour getting a client to, which is fucking relaxation. Nikki doesn't look relaxed. She doesn't look anything like a normal traditional trance is, but why are we getting the same phenomena? Because it is all the same. We do not have to relax a client to get them to this place. Why would you? Relaxation can be a byproduct of trance, but it has nothing to do with trance. Okay, so I'm going to butt out. I want to get some more questions out. Ainsley, go for it.
I've forgotten what she said.
That's all right. So ask her to clarify.
I said I felt out of control, and that things hadn't gone as planned. Nothing had gone as planned.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what do you call planned? As planned?
Because when I had my daughter, it was a very different circumstance, and it was an unplanned pregnancy, and so I'm just laying my life bare now.
Now, Nikki, I will only share as much as you like. You do not have to share everything.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We all learn from these things, so it's fine. And if I want to get somewhere, I've got to get it out.
Yes, indeed.
And when I was pregnant the second time, I wanted the dream. I wanted the perfect birth. I wanted to have my son at home, surrounded by candles, all the lovely, fluffy stuff that I didn't have the first time. And then I became seriously ill, and I was told throughout my pregnancy that there was a chance I would lose my son. And so I couldn't have any of that. I had to have him in hospital. And there were so many times that I thought, maybe I'm better not having this child. So when he came along, and then there was a lot of trouble giving birth to him. He was stuck nobody knew what to do, and there were all these doctors, and eventually I get rushed into theatre again. I hadn't had any of that with my first child. I'd had relatively an easy birth, and it just was all out of my control. And all my life I had tried to control everything I did.
Let's pause.
Yeah, I don't like being out of control. I like to make the decisions. I like to decide. I know what's right for me, and this wasn't right for me, and I had no choice. I just
No control.
And so when I feel like, I guess,
Mhm.
it was the control that I don't know.
And let's pause right there. Thank you, Nikki. I just sit on that for a moment. Okay. Ainsley, what's the common theme here we're hearing?
About control.
Yeah. Yep. She said it about 10 times, which is fine. A lot of unconscious stuff coming from it as well. Now, I know Nikki because we did a strategy call the other day. So I can sit back and I can see the character of everything she's talking about, because we've what we talked about on the phone indirectly as well. Now, she's somewhere. I can see that on her face. And I can tell she's going to a place where we'll use like a NLP type thing here, just so it comes clear. It's sort of right to the end of the map where Nikki will get to a point where she struggles to even exclaim what she's feeling or what's going on, what it's all about, because she's running out of words to explain it. That's how I know this stuff's unconscious. Okay. So for broad brushstrokes, definitely something about control here. Okay. What are you curious about? She keeps looping around that. What are you curious about? Don't try and solve it, because I know you can. What are you curious about?
I don't really know.
I'll throw this out there because it's a very basic question. Okay. So Nikki, just out of curiosity, what's so important about control? And there we have it. Where's the language patterns? Where's the Ericksonian confusion technique? And I've interrupted on purpose. Okay, I'm asking Nikki, who tells me she wants control, but I can guarantee this, because this is what every client will go through. What they want, they won't even fully understand why they want it, what it is, or even what it looks like if they had it. This is the conclusions we get caught in. So by asking a very simple question that has nothing involved with hypnosis or Ericksonian confusion language, I'm getting to a place where she doesn't even know we've started yet. That's what's important. If I said to Nikki, all right, close your eyes and go deeper, her defenses might come up and go, hang on, no, I'm not fucking ready for that. But I'm doing the same thing to her, treating her with respect without having to go hardline for it, but she's going to that place indirectly. Does that make sense, Ainsley?
Yeah.
Okay. So Nikki, I'll ask you again, what's so important about control? And there I have her again. Now, I don't have to do anything now. I'm just going to let her think about it. This is therapy. What's so important about control? So what's happening now, Nikki, as you think about that?
I feel sick. It's bringing up.
I know. Take your time with it. You're doing a good job.
People without control, if I don't have control, that means I've given my control away to someone else.
Thank you. We've now uncovered the next layer of that knot. Where was that information before? Had I gone straight into the hypnosis thing, Nikki would have brought that knot into the trance with her. Okay, this is why I say, guys, we do the therapy first.
And once you untie that knot, Nikki can sit back and go, oh my God, just shut up, Scott, let it go. I feel good. Give me a cigarette. This is amazing. But if all these conclusions and knots that Nikki has, if I go hardline for the traditional therapy, she brings all of this baggage in with her, which means that she goes into trance and sits in this room full of possibilities, running around the same fucking conclusions again, then pops out the other end and says, I felt relaxed, but I still feel the same.
Mm.
Okay. So what's happening now, Nikki? You said before you're feeling something.
I'm feeling sick. And
you mentioned before about if you don't have control, what did you say?
Someone else has control.
Someone else has it, right?
Well, yeah.
Now we're getting to see that, guys, that little unconscious smirk. There's something there. I have a feeling she's just realized something.
Mm.
This is the aha moment. This is the resource. So what?
It's the school bullies again.
It's the what? Sorry?
It's the school bullies again.
Pause right there. We just now have a regression. Questions in. Where was that memory? It wasn't present before. Did I have to tell her to go looking for that? No. I allowed it to happen naturally. It's what we call naturally occurring phenomena. The only time I use a regression is if my client tells me that's where they're going. The only time I use a visualization or relaxation, if my client tells me that's where they're going. And I can utilize it the exact same way Erickson did and make it seem like I created it, but I didn't. So Ainsley, knowing we just had a pretty cool memory come up, and it must have come up for a reason, it'd probably be worthwhile exploring, yeah? So Ainsley, what are you curious about? Just have to unmute yourself.
So what is it about the bullies?
They controlled my life.
Can everyone see the caricature now? You've got someone like Nikki, and I went through bullying as well, so I have to make sure my own stuff doesn't come up as well. We'll talk about that later. You can see now she's dragged this into her entire life, so anything that resembles control brings her back to this. But we didn't have to do a regression to get there. That's what's of most importance here. So Ainsley, what are we curious about?
So I'm curious to know, how did they control your life?
They made me believe things about myself which I knew wasn't true. But when you have so many girls saying things and you're saying, no, this isn't me, this isn't who I am, you have no control over what they say or what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And they break you.
Did everyone hear that big conflict there? She said it, and it was a very unconscious thing. Thank you, Nikki. And we'll just let Nikki sort of sit on that. This is part of the therapy. You got someone saying, I was controlled by bullies, but I can't control what they say. However, it broke me. What's the knot she's caught in? She knows she couldn't control them, but it still happened anyway. Can you hear that knot? Clear as day. And it was definitely more unconscious. We can't control them. And the more conscious stuff was it broke me, that sort of stuff. You can see it in her mannerisms and stuff. So knowing she's in this weird conflict where these two things, they're called clashing realities. These two things can't exist. I know I can't control what they say, but I'm going to accept what they say, and that's going to control me. These two things can't exist in the same place. Like I want to be up and I want to be down at the same time. Can't happen. Does that make sense? So with that, you can almost just get real simplified with this and say, well, you know, Nikki, knowing that you could control what they would say about you, what's the problem? Collapsing. And there I have her again.
You start to
Now, this is going to be her conclusion, which is fine.
Well, I just remember my parents saying things, and
Sure.
I had the most loving family. I was very spoiled by my grandparents, ruined by my grandparents because I was so spoiled. But I've realised over the years that because the bullies said things they said, I became more conscious of things I said. How I come across to people. I'm so worried all the time how people perceive me.
Right.
I always want approval. I want to be liked.
Now we have another layer, folks. See that, Ainsley? But guys, this stuff can only come out when we explore it. Now, we're not doing anything. We'll talk about the questions. We'll go through all of that. But all I want you to see now, I really just want you to see a version of this thing called ACH before we break it down, okay? All we're doing is investigating, and from there, we're finding out all the relevant information. We're finding the knots. What we do with them, that's day 2. This is purely just investigation, okay? So, Nikki, just out of curiosity, like you said, you can't control what people say, right? I mean, that's impossible.
No.
So what's the problem?
Because
what's that?
I don't seem to have control of my thoughts, because I'm still letting them control me, even though I know they can't control me. They're not in my life anymore. They weren't in my life when I left school. I left school purposely to get away from all of it, and I didn't follow my chosen career path because that meant staying in school.
Right. So let me ask you a question. Sure. Let me ask you a question just to clarify. What are you looking to get out of this session? Are you trying to find a way to forget about what those bullies said to you, even though you can't have control over what they did? Or are you trying to find a way to control your own thoughts?
I'm trying to find a way to control my own thoughts so that I don't keep holding myself back.
Now we're getting to the real thing. This is it's just a classical challenger's question, because she's telling me she wants a couple of different things. And I've just clarified and said, which one is more important? Which one do you want? But I just want you guys to see right now, where did this start? There's a lot of...
We started with me saying about my son.
And now look where we are. I just want to control my own thoughts. What the hell do they have to do with each other? Nothing. And that's the point. The mind, the conclusions, the conscious information, the unconscious information gets all lumped together and tied into this knot that we call our life. So anytime she thinks about anything to do with her son, anytime she thinks about something to do with school, the bullying, her thoughts, she instantly gets sucked into this knot. And it's like she hits all the walls every time she tries to think herself out of it. Would that be a fair example?
Because being in birth, when I was obviously having the difficult time with my son and giving birth to my son, being out of control meant someone else was controlling me again. So then it triggered me back.
Of course.
It's everything again, completely being out of control, someone else taking over. My husband took my son from me when he was born, and I never got a chance to bond with my son because my husband took over and left me to just, I don't know. It wasn't. So then I was out of control again. Now I feel like I can't breathe.
Take your time. This is the therapy, guys. Take your time. Don't rush it. This is important. That's better. Now, what's happening here, guys, is you've got a client consciously starting to see all the pieces of the puzzle. This can be quite revealing for a lot of people. This is the therapy. A lot of people discount the power of logic when it comes to doing therapy. It plays a big role. That whole thing, you've got to get rid of the conscious mind, that gets overplayed with. I love to use a lot of logic in this because sometimes just some logical thinking is enough to break through some very big problems, which is what's happening now. So being that we've sort of jumbled this around, so how are you feeling right now, Nikki? When you think about where we started, what's happening now?
It's still starting to make sense. I can see the connections. I can see how I could be triggered into feeling like that.
Yeah.
And it almost, there's anger actually.
Now we're getting to the next layer, guys. I'm curious what she's smiling about. If it's so upsetting, you got someone who's smirking and smiling. This is
because
the therapy.
I guess, in one way it's the therapist inside me, and then also it's the me inside me saying, for fuck's sake,
right,
come on. These were girls that were, we all know teenage girls are horrible to each other.
I agree.
So here I am, I'm 51.
Yeah.
These girls, let it go.
Can everyone hear?
Do you know what I mean?
Can everyone hear the realization, the aha moments, the therapeutic resource? Hear that?
It's like
Ainsley?
night and day.
Yeah.
It's like night and
She
day.
said it. I'm starting to see it differently or something like that. And she's smiling about it now. It's, why the fuck would I even think about those girls anymore? They're all drop kicks anyway. Paraphrased, of course.
Yeah, it's quite crazy how you've gone from it. You could obviously tell that it was really affecting you, and you was getting upset, and now your whole face and everything's changed.
Can you see how bright her skin is now? It's like whatever that was, it's starting to let go.
I feel like my poor son has been, not that he didn't ever know. I mean, we've had a very difficult relationship and we're fine now. But I now feel quite awful as a mum, thinking that I ever felt that way about him when it was nothing to do with him.
That's the next
at all.
Can you see that all coming together, Ainsley and everybody else? We're not doing anything. I'm not even talking to Nikki right now. She's telling us it all. This is what happens when we break the knot. The realizations of, man, this is what it is, and this is where I've been living my life. Logic plays a big role when it comes to breakthroughs. You can see it in her face and her skin. It's completely changed.
And I feel like,
stop enjoying this, Nikki. This is therapy. It's supposed to be all serious. Stop doing it.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I can cry if you want.
You can, yeah, just hang it up. We practice the crying part. Now, let me ask this seriously. How are you feeling right now about what we've talked about?
I feel like I can breathe. I feel relieved. I feel like, and in my head just now, I'm thinking, why would I worry what people think of me now? I know I'm a lovely person. I know that I've got a good heart, but I can't make everyone like me. But that shouldn't, what other people think is nothing to do with me. But at the same time, pardon?
Remember what you were telling us before?
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
And also it's whatever I do in my life, whether it's business, whatever I do, those girls can't control anything, and nobody that comes into my life knows anything about them. So it's not like anyone that meets me is going to go, oh, you're Nikki, you were bullied dreadfully at school.
Can everyone see the resource attaching itself, pacing itself?
It seems pathetic now, though, and I'm 51 and I've let this thing absolutely control again. There you go.
But now you can breathe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah. Sorry.
Don't be sorry.
I know you wanted me crying again. I'm sorry.
We're not even close to being ready yet. It's important to breathe, isn't it?
I tell my clients that all the time.
I know. But that's not
while holding my breath.
That's not the type of breathing I'm talking about. Right? That's better. Now we're getting somewhere. You're doing a good job. Take your time. That's better. This is all connecting, guys. And it's my job right now to be 100% there with Nikki and just coach her through this. This stuff coming out right now where there's no words, that's the fuel that has been fueling that problem for 50 odd years. That has to go. I'm not telling her what to do with it. Now, the breathing thing, that's not a therapeutic thing. She told me that. That's better, Nikki. That's better. Now, I know in the past you would normally rush things, but I want you to take all the time in the world to do this right now. I'll be right here. That's better. Now, this is the unconscious mind, guys, taking over, recalibrating things, shuffling things around. Why would I interrupt? I'm not going to give her any suggestions. Why would I? I wouldn't know what to say to her. She's doing it all.
I'm asking them to leave my body, just leave me.
Yeah, leave away. Doing a great job. Take your time. There's no point controlling it. No point controlling it. Good job. How are you feeling right now?
Like I've sent them all on their way.
About bloody time, right? Good job.
I've sent them all love.
Yeah, why not? Best way to get over people, even people that wrong us, just send them away with love. It's probably all they needed, right? Bit of love.
Yeah.
You've got plenty to spare, so why not? What's happening in your body right now?
Feels like it's releasing. It's just.
Yeah. Want to know why that is?
Yes.
Because you're getting better at it. So keep going. Don't rush it for me. That's better.
Guess I don't need to do my candle burning rituals.
Why waste time, right?
Finding the right words.
Yeah. Put it this way, we can find all the wrong words first and see where that takes us, right?
Right. It's not like they're letting me bother them anymore, is it?
Not at all.
They don't give me a second thought.
When's the last
Probably
time?
forgotten who I am.
Yeah. When's the last time do you think they thought about you?
Maybe if they've seen me pop up on Facebook.
Well, when you're rich and famous, that'd be a good way to do it.
Well, absolutely. Then I will be sticking two fingers up.
Yeah.
Mm,
Why not?
sorry.
I agree. That's better. Still shifting, isn't it?
There's a lot to shift.
So take your time. Comes and goes, I know.
The funny thing is, I know what you're doing.
Do you?
But it's working. How can simple words mean so much?
Right. Well, think about it like this as well. How can simple words affect us so much?
That's what I mean. And this applies to everything that I've been through as well as what you're doing.
Yeah. And especially for all your clients will do as well, right?
Right.
It all connects to itself, doesn't it?
Mm.
That's better. Here it comes again. That's it. May as well make all the room you need. That's better.
Mm.
Now you're getting it. But don't rush it. Take your time. I'm right here. You're getting better at it. Now you're getting it. It's just simple words. Just simple words.
They might be simple, but they're powerful. And they have the power to hurt. They have the power to...
Power to heal, right?
Yeah,
So I guess it's just a choice of which way you use them.
absolutely.
That makes sense, right?
Perfect sense.
Perfect sense. Good job. It's all perfect sense. Just perfect sense. There you go. Now you're getting it. What just happened then?
Well, I was just thinking, it's amazing how people say things when they feel threatened by you.
Interesting. It's nice to think about, isn't it?
And I don't mean that in a horrible way.
I know which way you mean.
I mean,
I know which way you mean. And I agree with you. So sometimes it's just the right words at the wrong time and the wrong ones at the right time, right?
right. But it's...
I know. Seem to be enjoying it.
Starting to realize that it's just not me. That it doesn't mean I'm not wrong, because obviously everybody's wrong at some time, aren't they? You know, we're not perfect. But I realized that by allowing control, it's like you're allowing them to control your mind and question what comes out of your mouth. And this is probably, but it's making me smile, because I think, well, I've only ever really spoken the truth. The truth sometimes gets you into trouble, of course.
I know what you're saying there. What's that like to realize that?
Well, I'd rather be truthful all of my life.
Yeah.
Than lie to people or not be me. And all these people have wanted me to be something else.
Right.
And I've smiled because of an ex-boyfriend who I'm still friends with, said to me, I was the one that got away. And I said, well, I was so in love with you. Why did you let me get away? And he said, because you frightened me. So I said, well, that's a ridiculous thing. How can I frighten you? And he said, because you always speak the truth. You're never afraid of anything. You're never afraid to go to places in your mind where other people wouldn't go. And that scared me. And I didn't know how to deal with it. And I was just smiling because I thought, that's a nice thing to say.
I agree.
And all the time that these other people have been in my life that I've tried to, or I've allowed to control me, they've stopped me being me, and they've tried to stop my voice and stop
your truth.
Yes.
How do you feel about the control thing right now?
Well, I'm in control now.
You sure?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. Of course, you can't. You have to have. So my partner, he still has to have a voice, and I still have to listen to that and respect that.
Mm-hmm.
But when I think about it now, he still allows me to be me. So I am me. So I am in control.
How do you feel about the relationship with your son right now? How do you feel about the relationship with your son right now?
Happy. We've been building the relationship for the last 6 months, and it's lovely. And letting that go now. As I say, I feel dreadful in a way for thinking that about him, but now I understand why I thought that, which has nothing to do with him. It was just the control thing, which has nothing to do with anything else. It was just because I was having decisions, I couldn't speak what I wanted because it was all taken out of my control, which, let's be honest, if you're giving birth to a child, and the reality is I had no choice. Otherwise I'd have died, or he would have died, or we would both have died.
Sure.
So
all makes sense now, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I wasn't out of control.
Maybe you just...
It was out of necessity.
Now we're talking.
So sometimes it's necessary to be out of control.
Thank you. Now you got it.
And it's okay.
I agree. How do you feel about that?
I don't really have any thought about it, because it is what it is, isn't it? You have, it's acceptance, isn't it? It
really is.
You control the things that you can control, and there are things in your life you can't control. And that's that. There's no...
That's life, isn't it?
It's not to do with anything else. It's not personal against me. It's not a personal attack, or because something doesn't like me. It's not like the kettle breaks and it don't like me and that's why it's broken. I mean, this all sounds ridiculous now, but it's okay. So on the screen, something's just come up that said, so what's the problem?
I was actually going to ask that question. What's the problem then?
There isn't one. There's no problem with that at all.
Good job. Ainsley, good job. Let's get you back.
Ainsley, that was brilliant.
All that down, okay? I'll break all that down, guys. For a lot of you, that's going to seem like really fun. Like, what the hell was that? I'll explain it, but that's a good example of ACH. Ainsley, sorry to hijack your session, but honestly, the first three questions you asked, that's all it took.
Yeah. That was really fast.
Yeah, this last part, hopefully everyone can see what happened. I'll explain it. That was her getting her resource and attaching it to everything. What were we doing as a therapist? Just, I know. Just agree. You know, I talk about the processing, guys. We'll talk about more of this tomorrow, the processing. That's processing in action. It just happened to be now.
Now, it'll process itself later on, but that's just what I mean by that quick breakthrough thing. Okay. Ainsley, any questions before we break all that down? Could you see where we were with that?
Yeah. I think what I've been tending to do, as soon as I've started charging, is I've started to be getting too involved in the conversation, and we end up just having a chat, and it's not going anywhere. So seeing that
pressure, that's what I mean. As soon as you start charging, you fall into I have to solve this because you've paid me money. Don't do that. You want to treat it the exact same, whether it's free or they've spent $10,000 on you. Because otherwise, if you go into it trying to fix it, all it is just a conversation, because you're blocking your natural therapeutic ability to show up, and you're ignoring the unconscious stuff she's giving you because you're too much in your head trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
All right.
If a client had come to you with that and said, I feel like I died when I gave birth to my son, I can, sitting here as a therapist, I would have been going, oh my God, okay, so this is trauma from birth.
Of course, because you're getting sucked into the symptom. And that's just a classic example of ACH. That's a classic example of what I mean between symptoms and root cause. Now, Nikki, you can metaphorically close your ears now. I still don't know what the real problem is, and I don't have to know. She knows. And sometimes in most cases, that's a weird conflict. In most cases, a client will get a sense of the root cause, but sometimes won't be able to explain it. And that's fine too. Does that make sense? And I know she's hit the root cause because it's let go of all that stuff. Whatever that was, I don't care.
I felt like an alien. I mean, I don't watch films like that, but I know that in Alien, she births, doesn't she, the alien or whatever. But I felt like I was letting everything out. It was like, you get out of my body because I don't need you in there anymore. Just get out. And I'll send you a new way with love. And I was doing that in my head. I was doing it with all the people that were that had been controlling me.
See all the...
You looked a little bit... Sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to say, this is all the unconscious mind. Still, this is the processing. This is exactly what we want to happen. Go ahead, Ainsley.
Yeah, you looked a bit like, well, you're obviously in trance and you're processing, but at some points, I don't know if I'm able to say this, but you looked a little bit drunk, like a bit, a bit...
It's coffee in my mug.
It's because we're asking her to retrieve information that she hasn't had access to. It's like, imagine being on like a ketosis diet for 30 days and then eating sugar. It's that rush. It's that drunken rush you get from that. It's the body reacting consciously to some unconscious information that they didn't know what was there. There has to be some sort of physical reaction to that. That's the emotions. That's that sitting in that little, it almost looks like the start of an ab reaction, but it's not. It's just them coming to terms with this stuff.
Yeah, because I could feel like the moments where I thought I'm going to cry. Well, I did start. And then I was like, in my head, I'm going, I hope this isn't an lab reaction.
I would have had it anyway. Yeah. But look, go ahead.
No, it just, I felt when she said I looked drunk, it was really weird going in and connecting, because obviously the bullying thing has always been there, but once I started going back and I'm seeing it was almost like a string attached to then every moment where a control problem came up. It was like I tied it to them girls, and then it's going along the string, if this makes sense, to the next person, and another knot tied because it's attached, and then to the next person, all the way along.
You see the difference in the way she's talking about the same thing she was talking about half an hour ago, where it was just dreadful? That's how I know there's change starting to happen. There's no physical reaction to it, which means that she can still have the problem, but the fact she can't view it or feel it the same, thus the problem gets resolved. It's like time heals all wounds. You break up with someone who you fell in love with, it lingers for a while, it hurts. If you see them on the street a couple of weeks later, it still hurts. But a couple of years later, you think, oh my God, I couldn't care less. Makes
Did
sense?
they really look like that?
Yeah, was that me or was that them? Have they let themselves go? Am I better looking? What's going on? Same thing. But
Yeah.
we'll break this down because I want to talk about all the individual parts. What you guys just saw was more for day 2, but it happened, so be it. Okay? And the good thing about it, it works. I'm off the hook now, guys. I know it works. No, I'm just joking. All right, let's break this down, okay? Regardless of a client's problem, books in with you, stop smoking, anxiety, we niche for the sake of the business, the marketing. That's pure logic stuff. That's why the 100K program exists. That's the niching part. But realize when a client comes in to see us, the reason they have a problem is going to be different than the next client and the next client. You cannot categorize everybody as having the same problem because of the same thing. Who's heard that thing before where all problems exist because of childhood trauma? Who's heard that before? That gets thrown around. Okay. How on earth can that be possible? Because that's saying that everybody is the same. Okay. Let's get a show of hands. Who is a meat eater? Who likes eating meat? Okay. Who's a vegetarian? Okay. We already have people that are different. Okay. Same thing as therapy. The reason a client has a problem is because they've concluded something. And the reason your next client has a problem is because they've concluded something else. They cannot be the same. Does that make sense? Okay. So in order to find out what those conclusions are, what the knots are, where they've caught themselves in this place, we have to investigate what the problem is. And every time, regardless you've had the strategy call, regardless a client says, okay, Lani, I'm booking you for stop smoking, you always start in the same place. What's the problem? Tell me about it. You always want to start where your client is. Do not start the session where you want them to be. Do not need to start the session by saying, okay, close your eyes. Keep them closed until you can't open them. You know, that stuff, like how deep can you go into trance? We don't do any of that stuff, okay? So we start with what's the problem, okay? We ask the client and we sit back and wait for a response. What our client tells us next is going to be a mixture of conscious conclusions, unconscious conclusions, and very unconscious conclusions that they don't know what they have, that they don't know they have. So all communication, bar none, is a mixture of conscious and unconscious. Your job is to find out which one is which. Does that make sense so far? So we asked Nikki a question. She gave us a response. From there, to make it really simple, you just have to get curious about the response. I wonder why she said that. Let me ask this question to clarify. And the questions are just what, who, when. Be a little bit careful with why questions, like why are you a smoker? Why can't you quit? Because that tends to cement in the problem, becomes a reality strategy. Okay, just be aware of that. Who, any of those questions. Okay. From then we ask Nikki, okay, well, what's stopping you from X, Y, and Z? Nikki has to think about that because she's never been asked that question before. As she's thinking, I know she's going to a place where the problem exists, which is trance, is unconscious mind. And as soon as she comes back out, I now just have to pay attention to the response, not what I'm going to do with it. And there's only 2 types of responses, conscious or unconscious. So what would tell us or alert us to being a conscious response? What do you think we'd be on the lookout for?
Fast talking, already know what the, what the story is about without thinking.
Yeah, that's the main thing. The response is quick. There's no thinking. It's like, oh, I know what it is. This, and this. There's no break. Yeah. There's no animation. When a client says that, I can ignore that. I don't have to listen to a thing because that's just all their conclusions and that's not real. The opposite is the unconscious information. That's what I'm looking for. What would tell me or what would alert me to an unconscious information?
When they go quiet,
when they look
away.
Yep. What we're looking for is unconscious moments. So I want to make a list of these. So an unconscious moment is like a piece of information dripping in unconscious goodness. It's the real unconscious truth. But unfortunately, many people think it's the opposite. The unconscious mind doesn't like to reveal everything straight away. And if it does reveal something, it's usually hidden in code. It's not obvious. The unconscious mind deals with emotions, metaphors, examples, visual, that sort of stuff. I wish the unconscious mind could just come out and say, it's this. Yes, great. That would be like a minute session, but it doesn't do that. Okay, Daphne, go for it.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
And I noticed it with Nikki. When you get through your initial, you get to the root cause, you get through that, and she's coming out all happy and she's going, yeah, okay, I got it. I understand what these girls are doing to me. It's ridiculous that I hung on to this for so many years, blah, blah, blah. And then I noticed you started saying, but you're not done yet. You're not done yet. What if they, or how do you know when they're going to launch into another root problem?
I'll get to that. Yep, we'll get into that. Okay, that gets to more of the therapeutic stuff. We'll tie into that. I'll show you exactly what I'm looking for. Okay, so talking about the problem, getting some information. What I'm looking for is the response she just gave me conscious? If it is, I can ignore it. Or was there a glimmer of unconsciousness in there? So it usually sounds like this. I'll just paraphrase here. Nikki says, I want control in my life. Okay. And then she says, I say, okay, well, what's important about control? Just a curious question. Now, if you see through the demo, me doing this, I'm doing that because I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying it. I don't care. I'm just seeing where it goes. Okay. So don't write what I said because it won't work on your next client. And then she does this. She goes, well, I really want control because it's really about me, because I want this control because all these girls are picking on me and blah, 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 blah. It's that little snippet that I need to pay attention to. Okay. And by asking her, this is where it gets really cool. By asking her, hey, you said just before, it's all about you. What did you mean by that? I'm now saying, clarify that unconscious information for me. Where will she have to go to clarify that? Back into trance. And all I'm doing is as you have the aha moment just there. Well, makes sense.
No, I've just had something else.
What's happened right here, because it's come up, natural emerging phenomena from processing. Everyone knows about processing, done this before. This is what happens after your client leaves your session. I have to ask because it's come up. What just came up?
Well, when I had my session with Sally, I said we finally unraveled that I had too many voices in my head. So many voices I couldn't hear myself. So we unraveled all of that. I've just worked out all the bloody voice. Why with all these voices in there? Well, it's because I always ask everyone's opinion before I do anything.
Yeah.
Why is that? Well, it's because I don't trust what I say because of the control thing, because I'm scared of saying something in case someone don't like me. And I'm scared of doing this because I'll upset someone and then they're going to bully me and then they're going to want to control me. So this is why I ask so many opinions of so many people, because it all stems back to the control again, because I'm scared and I'm questioning myself all of the time and not trusting myself not to upset someone, or maybe I shouldn't do that because that I need to be all nicey and just to do it all nice because then no one will hurt me.
Everyone see that's done this course before, the processing in action. If I had her listen to an audio, it would interrupt that. If I had her do homework, it would interrupt that. We'll get into exactly what that is later, guys. I'll explain that, but this is how I know it's worked. These are the kids.
Sorry, I've butted right in while you're explaining.
That's what's important here. Okay. So as I was saying before, Nikki comes out with a response. She unconscious moments herself, snaps back out of it, starts talking without thinking. Let go of that stuff. It's your job just to navigate where the unconscious stuff and keep asking questions following the tail of that unconscious stuff. Does that make sense, guys? You'll see more demos of this. That's really what ACH is. And by following that tail of unconsciousness, eventually you get to this thing we call root cause. Okay. And it might take 2 questions. It might take 5 questions. Trust me, the more you practice this, the quicker that response will become. Okay. So the question is, well, Scott, you know, of following the tail of the unconscious mind, asking all these questions, how does that cause a breakthrough? What happens with you when they get to this thing called root cause and get the aha moment? Why does that cause a breakthrough? Anyone like to have a guess as to how that might work?
Isn't it connecting the unconscious mind with the conscious?
Pretty much. Yeah. It's just making them realize this is it. And it puts the unconscious mind on alert that, hey, this is no longer working. It's putting attention on it. Okay. This is why I'm always fond of logic when it comes to therapy. It doesn't have to be this deep trance, relaxation, hug your fucking inner child, or that sort of stuff. That's fine if you use that stuff, but now you're forcing a client and telling them what to do. Why the hell would you do that? Let them do it. Okay. Now, to go back to your question, Daphne, usually what occurs, not always, but in most cases, when a client hits that root cause thing, they'll start to feel it. It'll vibrate through their body. Okay. And you'll see a client might start doing this. You'll see a client start to cry. You'll see some emotions. You'll see a client start uncontrollably laughing. We've seen all of these things. You might even see a client that does this. You'll be talking to them, Daphne, they'll be answering, and all of a sudden they'll go, the unconscious mind just pulls them in. This is usually your time to shut up. It's like putting a cake in the oven, turn the oven on, let it bake. Don't keep opening up the oven door. Okay? Whatever they do in trance, they will figure it out. Who believes that a client's unconscious mind is way more creative than the suggestions you make for your clients? Who would agree with that? So why the hell would you bother? Why the hell would you sit there and make up a story that you want them to hear when in Nikki's case, she's had 50, I think she said she's 45. Let's say she's 45 years on this planet to become the person she is. Don't you think she could figure out this? What can occur with this stuff when it comes to the therapy? Silence is sometimes the best therapy. To just let a client think things through. Sit in this place where that knot is no longer twisted up. Okay? If you start telling a story, or I say to Nikki, you're a wonderful person, you're powerful, she already knows that. I don't have to tell her that. Plus now I'm interrupting the naturally occurring trance. I'm just going to sit there and let her sit in it. As the emotions come up, Daphne, or you see a client go, we use something called process instructions. I'll talk about this soon, where it's like, I'm just coaching them through it. I'm saying that's right. Everyone's heard that from Erickson. There you go. That's right. I'm saying you're doing a good job. Sit there and breathe. Just relax into it. Do what you want with it. Let that shit go. Okay. Now, you asked the question before, Daphne, how do I know when it's finished? It's because the body will stop responding to it. Let's say a client says, oh, I'm feeling really tight. It's so tight. And then they let it go and they go, oh, it's all done out. It just means the unconscious mind is finished. It's done doing whatever it has to do.
But my question was, if they've processed that, they've gone full and they've come back up, they're all happy, but then they go back down again.
That's just the mind.
And they go into something else.
Yeah, that's where the mind, it sort of finishes that part and thinks, okay, it's all done. Then it goes searching for all the little bits that are associated. Then it'll find another bit and you'll see them react to it. There you go, finish it off this time. Then they react to it. And they might react 10 or 12 different times. That's them breaking down all those different knots. It's collapsing them all.
Okay, so you keep going into the questions on each of these little loops that they do until they're all gone.
Think of it like this. It's like 10 little mini sessions in the space of an hour instead of 10 1-hour sessions over 10 weeks.
Okay, that makes sense.
Does that make sense? And eventually you'll know when it's done because you'll say, how you feeling? Client says, it's gone, feels fine. That's just their unconscious mind saying, all right, Daphne, I'm done. It's finished. I've connected it all.
Okay.
Does that make
So
sense?
it's a bit like, like a computer looking for bugs and things. It will go to the certain the hard drive first, and then it will do that, and then it will go searching for other parts of the computer to see if there's anything.
Yeah. Now,
realize we've jumped quite a far ahead, guys, that it is what it is. We will keep breaking all these parts down by day 2 to be blatantly obvious. Okay, that's just the real highlighted version. Let me get some questions. Does that make sense just to understand what you saw, but you may not be able to do it yet? Is everyone okay with me right there? Is that sort of making sense? Okay. Who liked the look of that session? Like, man, I could do that, no problems. Like, that's way easier. Okay. Jennifer, do you have a question?
Yeah, there was a portion where she was talking about needing to breathe better and holding her breath. And then you responded with, that's not the kind of breathing I was talking about. Can you tell me more about your thoughts and what you were thinking of purpose on that?
Absolutely.
Good question, because I was thinking that as well.
And I'm lucky I prepared an answer for this. No, what happens is this. Sometimes therapy can be really rough, and I'm fine with that, but it doesn't always need to be. The breathing she was doing was trying to control the breathing. What was the whole session about? Control. So I'm saying indirectly, not that breathing, because that's you trying to fucking control your breathing. And then she'd naturally breathe out and go, oh, and I go, there you go. I'm saying indirectly, let your mind do it. Stop fucking controlling it. Just let it happen. That's why that come up. Now in the next session, I might not need to say that, but all I'm doing is just, I'm watching these unconscious moments. The same thing for an ab reaction. If I see a client go, start stressing, getting really tense, I go, no, not that. Go back to where you were. Oh, I feel good again. Now you're getting it. Stay there. Because they can get just as good as a breakthrough there as they do with the ab reaction type thing where it's not necessary. That's the reason that came up. Does that make sense?
So is that how you would deal with an ab reaction? You say, no, not that.
We'll talk about that.
Sorry, you'll talk about that.
There's a totally different ab reaction drill, but that's the reason why that came up. Okay. It was indirectly saying to her, stop fucking controlling everything. Your mind will figure it out. It's the same thing, Jennifer, where a client starts looking. You can see them in their head looking for the result they want. No, stop looking. Just sit there. Don't do anything. And as we found out, Nikki had that big aha moment, like, oh my God, I just figured it out. Had she been looking for that, she would not have found it because she's now trying to force it. And this is a common thing for your clients. That's how we get around that. Does that make sense, Jennifer?
Absolutely. And is this when you say these little cheeky things like, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to you?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just a bit of fun with the language. But that's what I'm doing. I'm talking directly to them unconsciously and consciously at the same time. But all in all, it's just indirectly saying to clients, just whatever's happening right now is fine. Stop trying to stop it. Don't do anything with it. Don't try and make sense of it. Just fucking sit there, please. You're in timeout. Don't do anything. And I just have to keep them there. My job is to keep them in that unconscious moment, because the longer they stay there, the more aha moments are going to come out. But what happens is a client sits there for a couple of seconds, launches out of it and tries to justify it consciously. And I go, no, I don't want to talk to you. Fuck off. Go back to where you were. That's where that result is. No, but Scott's going, no. Oh, there you go. But no. It's like a kid. Stay there. Just sit there. So you just got to monitor these things. Does that make sense for now?
Perfect.
Okay. Fritz, question?
3 questions from the chat. First one is curious about the why questions.
About the what, sorry?
Why questions. Why they avoid them.
So yeah, a why question can create an excuse. Like, why do you keep smoking? Justify. My mum smokes. I love smoking. I get smokes for free. I smoke because it helps me relax. All I'm going to do is cement them into it. One way to get out of a why question is, instead of saying, why do you keep smoking? You can change it with what stops you from quitting. That's a different type of response I'm looking for. Does that make sense, guys? Now, why is not the worst thing in the world, but just be aware of the response it can give. Next question.
Another one.
Yep.
Would a good strategy be to look for metaphors in the client's speech and then ask about it as if taking it literally?
Yeah. Like if Nikki would have said, oh, all of a sudden I feel like I'm stuck to the chair. I know. There you are, stuck to the chair. Okay, trying to control it, and there you are being stuck to the chair. Doesn't matter what I say, but I can definitely pay attention to that metaphor. A metaphor, we'll go through the list, guys, of what unconscious moments are. We'll get a detailed list. A metaphor is just the unconscious mind talking directly to. But I don't have to understand the metaphor. I can just utilize it and give it back to them. That's why everyone would look at Erickson and go, how the fuck does he know these? I've got to stop swearing. How does he know what metaphors to say or what stories to say? He doesn't prepare them. He waits for his clients to say it, and he utilizes it, gives it back to them, and makes it sound like he made it up on the spot. That was his genius, called utilization. Okay. Was there any other questions there, Fritz?
Yeah, last one is, how do we educate our clients from the symptom to the root cause when we niche?
Yep. Ask me that on day 3. That'll be more the business logic stuff. I'll be happy to answer that. Okay. So let's now get a detailed list of unconscious moments. If all you did, guys, to take away from this training is learn what unconscious moments were and learn how to see them, you'd be light years ahead of your competition just from that alone. Okay. So let's look, there's different categories. Let's look at visual unconscious moments. What would we see in a client that lets us know they're giving us some really juicy information, or they're going into trance? It's really the same thing anyway. Let's make a list.
They look away or in another direction.
Head down.
Away in another direction. So they might cease eye contact and sit there and think and ponder and sort of get stuck in that moment. We saw a lot of that with Nikki, which lets us know we're on the right track. What else?
Lots of blinking.
Lots of blinking. Yep.
Emotional.
Emotional. Yeah, you can definitely see emotions.
Face flattens out.
Yep, face flattens out. You might see the skin flush. What else?
Glaze looked over their face or over their eyes.
I love that look. Yeah, I always find it amusing when a client's talking and it makes no sense whatsoever. And they go, man, I hope that makes sense. You go, yeah, it does. I don't care if it does or not, as long as it makes sense to them. Okay. What else?
Coughing.
Breathing.
Coughing, breathing. Yep.
Yawning. Fidgeting.
Yawning, fidgeting. Good one.
The
Yep, the ums and can't get the words out. That's definitely a visual thing as well.
I noticed Nikki was rubbing her arm a lot. Does that mean anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the good one, Alan. There's one of the trainings we talked about this last time. I always forget her name, but she was talking about, it might have even been control as well with her kids and her business. And she's talking, she had a little breakthrough and she had her hair up in a bun. And as she was talking, she didn't know she was doing it. She had this massive realization, oh, my life's going to change this. And she took her bun out and she did this with her hair. That's a visual representation of the breakthrough. Does anyone remember what demo that was? It was, if you do,
That was a year ago.
Crystal, was
That was
it?
Crystal. Yeah,
Crystal.
that was Crystal from, I think, number 4.
Number 4, yeah, that was a good one. And we asked her about it. She goes, I didn't even know I did that. Very unconscious. It might be a client scratching themselves in the forehead nonstop and don't realize they're doing it. Okay. Now, what we do with these things, we'll look at that, but we're just going to get a list. Anything else visually we might see?
Shifting emotions that don't correlate.
Yeah. Who are we with? Again, I forget.
Changing skin color.
Skin color, definitely. Emotions that don't correlate. We had a client who had some pretty heavy stuff come up, and then the breakthrough from that was just nonstop laughter.
So I was gonna say laughter.
Okay, and he could not stop. And I'm trying to bring it back to the emotional stuff. It was just nonstop. So you can see that, definitely hear that as well. But just the way his body was moving, so the laughter goes along with it. If it doesn't correlate to the caricature of the session, these are things you want to listen out for, but also look for as well. Anything else?
Yawning. You also feel the energy as well of it.
Yeah, you'll feel it. You'll probably get a lot of times, guys, this doesn't sound right, but it's the way it's explained. You sort of get sucked into it, especially if you're with your client one-on-one, you can feel it and you'll get lost in their sort of unconscious moment as well. That's not a bad thing. Any other visual stuff?
Shoulders dropping.
Yeah, shoulders dropping. Okay. Now, I do want to point something out, and I made a point of this before, but I really want to drive this home. A client does not have to be relaxed. That has nothing to do with it. What's crazy is, and hopefully you guys would agree with this, ACH, it's still trance, but it looks so different to a relaxation trance. Who would agree with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
If you go into the session looking for what trance should be, you'll screw it up. Everybody does trance differently. Please write that down. Everybody does trance differently. It is not up to you to tell them how to go there. They will figure it out for themselves. Remember, they are way more creative than you are. Let me ask you this. When a client created a problem, did they have to be relaxed to create the problem?
No.
Why the hell do they have to go there in order to get rid of it? But that's that whole relaxation thing to get rid of the conscious mind. Forget about that. It makes things really, really awkward and boxes us in, because if we don't see relaxation, we go, oh, it's not working. I don't care about that stuff. If I'm working with Jennifer, halfway through the conversation, she says, Scott, I'm so relaxed, I don't even want to talk to you right now. I know. I'll just utilize it. She'll go there. Sometimes a client will laugh. Sometimes they'll be relaxed. Sometimes they'll get frustrated. Sometimes you'll say 1 or 2 sentences and a client will be out for 2 hours. Bean has talked to me about that a lot of times. Clients just sitting there in trance, tranced out, not saying anything, because that's the way they do it. Does that make sense, guys? It helps you understand this type of therapy. Everyone's looking for, how deep can I get a client? What does it matter? It has nothing to do with the brain waves. And, oh my God, confusing. As long as a client has a problem, they can go into trance. As long as you can ask a client to go looking for that information, they can go into trance. That's all we have to worry about. Does that make sense, guys? There's a big difference between a relaxation trance and a therapeutic trance. We're looking at them therapeutically.
Ask a question.
Go for it.
Do you find that if you have clients come to you that have had hypnotherapy before, so they know how to go into trance and that's natural to them, do they react differently during ACH? Do they go into trance easier? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a client that comes along and they have an idea of what's going to happen, because I have a client that I was treating with cancer, and she's had quite a few sessions, and she comes for the well-being rather than anything else. And she's out like a light. It's
fine. That's what she does. That's what she does.
Yeah, but I just wondered if you have clients that have been to other hypnotherapists before, so they understand what trance is, whether it reacts if they react differently once you start.
Yeah. What I like to do in that case is this stuff catches them unaware. And if they have to come back and see me, that means they've just been in trance. Now let's do the therapy. Forget trance, let's do the therapy. So you don't have to come back and see me anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Let's now look at auditory. Oh, Sandra, do you have a question? We'll do the auditory ones.
Yes, something just popped into my head.
Sure.
Do you have to warn clients that you're going to be putting them into a trance? Or say if they've never had hypnotherapy before?
No.
You wouldn't, because it's a bit kind of covert, isn't it?
No, because I'm not doing it on purpose.
Right.
Now, this is actually a good point, because people say, well, every time I say hypnosis, my clients get really scared. We're not doing hypnosis, so it doesn't matter. Make sense? We're just having a chat.
Yeah, but if you're selling yourself as a hypnotherapist,
that's different. We'll look at more of that logically for the business. But again, that's why I say when it comes to the business, that's why we don't say we're a hypnotherapist, because it doesn't matter. I say that in the 100K course. One of the slides said, you are no longer a therapist, a coach, a blah, 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 because I don't want to trigger that. You are somebody that helps people quit smoking that happens to use hypnosis as a tool. Okay.
Okay.
But realize the better quality your clients are, trust me, when my lawyers came in, the quality lawyers, they didn't care what I did, what I said, how I did it. The ones where I was charging $100, they wanted to know everything. And they were a pain in the ass. That's the politically correct word. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's look at auditory, because auditory is important, because what happens if you guys want to do this over Zoom without the camera on, or you want to do this over mobile phone? Works just as well. Okay, I never use the camera when I work with clients. When I do strategy calls, I don't have the camera on either, because I'm in my robe and slippers. Same thing with my therapy clients. Okay. Auditory. What should we listen for?
Pausing.
Pausing. Yep.
Unchanging.
Metaphor.
Yep. Tone. What else?
Speed.
Speed's a big one.
Voice cracking.
Voice cracking. Yep.
Loss of word.
Loss of words is one of my favorite ones, where a client goes,
Well, it's they're trying to explain it consciously. That's like you're pushing them right to the end of the cliff, just before they fall off the cliff was where I want them to go. That's a good place to be. What else?
He starts talking in metaphors.
Metaphors. Client starts talking about metaphors. You know, I feel like I'm stuck in cement when you ask them, you know, what is it like to smoke? They use a metaphor to try and explain it. Okay. They might tell short stories, anything like that. What else?
Belching, burping.
Yep. Burping.
When they forgot about the problem, or when they forgot about when they're speaking.
Yeah.
What they were speaking, they lost themselves into the.
Yep. That's how you know you've got them to a really good place where the client will turn around and go, hang on, what were we talking about again? I don't know. It's a nice place. What else?
It's slowing down. It's slowing down of speech.
Now, I want to point at this because this is a great one. Your client, and Nikki did this a few times. She talked really, really, really fast, slow down, say something that had a lot of meaning, talk. It was like hidden. There's 2 or 3 second unconscious moment hidden. That's what I'm paying attention to. So consciousness is very fast. It's rehearsed. Unconsciousness is sort of like it surprises your client as they're saying it. On top of that, what's really funny is a client will say it, won't even remember they've said it. Go, hang on, did I really say that? Yes, you did. Not you, the other you said it. That's how you know it's really unconscious stuff. And it's quite funny when you bring the stuff up and you say, hang on, before you said it's this, and they go, did I say that? Yes. Gotcha. Yes, you did. Does that make sense, guys? Regina, do you have a question?
Yeah, I did a practice session with a colleague of mine, and everything she said was a metaphor. There was like metaphor after she'd start a metaphor and she'd start a second metaphor in that metaphor. And I was like, I don't know where the hell I am right now.
Yeah.
So what do you do when you come
so
to
with
that
metaphors,
kind of
to make it really simple, to not complicate it, I just ask client, what do you mean by that? Think about the principle there. I'm drawing attention to it. Anytime you see an unconscious moment, what are we doing with it? Just drawing attention to it. By saying, what did you say there? What's happening with that? What do you mean by this? Question. I'm drawing attention. The attention is fuel for that trance to occur.
Yeah, I think I did with a couple of them, but her integration process took a little bit longer, but she messaged me with good results. So, but it was really confusing in the session.
I want to bring something up. Thank you. For ACHs here, who's noticed your best breakthroughs are the ones where you go, what the hell was that? I don't even know what I said. Like, that was so confusing. Good. If you can walk out of your session knowing exactly what you said, what they said, you're consciously interrupting it. I've got out of sessions thinking, oh my God, that sucked. They're going to want their money back. And I get a phone call later saying it changed their life. You go, yeah, that's what I meant to do. But if I go in and try and control it, I screw it up. You can't control this stuff consciously, but trust me, you will want to. Okay, so good. You just have to learn to, I sort of gauge that. The more confused I was, the better the outcome, because it's not me doing the session. Okay. Other auditory things.
Yanni.
They may not.
Go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, they may not hear you and they'll ask you to repeat the question.
Yeah. So you sometimes, in yawning as well, you sometimes have a client who would negatively disassociate from the conversation. Okay, where a client just won't be hearing what you're saying. I mean, that's a pretty extreme hallucination, a negative hallucination, sorry. But yeah, they're things to listen out for. What about unconscious moments hidden inside the problem? These are the ones I love. This is what we call conflicts, clashing realities. It's when a client says, we take Nikki's example, I know I can't control what people say, but I want to control what they say.
Contradictions.
Contradiction. Those two things cannot exist in the same place. They're not together. You can call it a parts, but I'm not saying do a parts integration. We don't do any of that stuff. You don't need to. The mind will figure it out anyway. I love hearing these things, conflicts, because the conflicts give me a caricature of everything they're talking about.
Right.
Now,
well, hey, Nikki had a,
go ahead.
She said something. She said she had a unplanned pregnancy that went went fine and a planned one that didn't. So they're like two contradictory things that were that happened for her when she was talking.
And that really bothered me. That's always bothered me.
And that's
until now.
Yeah, that's the backwards rationalization on to try and control it, trying to get an understanding of what else, and that's why we sort of screw that up. Okay, so this is what I mean by how can you hear or see these unconscious moments when you're too busy doing this? You'll miss them all. Or when you're too busy trying to solve the problem. When you're busy trying to solve the problem, where's your attention? On them or on you?
Yeah.
When you're too busy to say, what would you call that part? And what does that part say to this part? What are you now doing? You're now telling them what to do. Why the hell would you do that? You don't know what's best for them. How do I know a client needs a parts integration? How do I know a client needs a regression? How do I know a client needs any of that stuff? The only time I know is when they start doing it to themselves and I hijack it and make it seem like I did it. Like it's the exact thing they needed. Doesn't that take a lot of pressure off us guys? When you try and force a technique onto somebody, what are you basically saying about that person? Any ideas?
They don't have the resources to figure it out themselves.
And who thinks that's garbage? Of course they have the resource.
Also, you're going back to control, you're taking the control away from the client.
You're putting yourself in a position like, I'm the mystical therapist, I know more than you. Now, there's nothing wrong with those tools. And you might get it right. But think of all the wonderful ways they could have got to that same place where they did it all for themselves and it became more powerful. Does that make sense? Talk about being lazy, right? It comes back to the essence, the principle of utilization. Your client will go into trance. Well, let's take a step further. Your client creates the problem. Your client will rehearse the problem. Your client will go into trance the way they wanted to go into trance. They will do the therapy the way they need to do therapy, and they will process it for themselves. Your only job is to help them see what the real problem is. Once they do that, let them go. And that's where Nikki went. We found what it was, and then I just stood back. Did you see Nikki saying, oh, it's this, and this is connected to this and this? What were we doing? Just a lot of this. Yes, Nikki. Yes, indeed. That's it. Just agreeing with her. She's doing all the therapy on herself. Had I said, okay, Nikki, close your eyes now. I want you to relax and see the young girl and give it a hug and a high five. I'm now telling her what to do. And that's a lot of work for me. Does that make sense, guys?
Letting the unconscious mind speak, are you?
Yeah. What if she needed to punch her inner child? And I'm saying, hug it. Okay. I don't know what she needs to do, and I don't have to know. She'll figure it out. She's way more intelligent than me. All I have in hindsight is I can see the problem because I'm not in it, and I can see that conflict. And as soon as I have her see that conflict, it starts to collapse. Does that make sense, guys? Who's really confused right now? Who looks and goes, man, that seems too simple. But
well, yeah, because I to myself, I'm thinking, well, to me, it was almost like I'd done my own timeline therapy as well as past regression, or you did it, or whatever. But you know, really, it was like
all those words like regression and float above your timeline. I used all of them, didn't I? No. Did it?
But that was what happened.
Of course. I know. I don't know. And if you see me during the demo doing this stuff, guys, what I mean by that is I'm just trying stuff. I'm just throwing stuff out there. I don't care what happens with it. I don't know what I'm saying half the time. And this is what I mean about doing the sessions with your clients, guys, and walking out going, man, what the hell was that? Because it wasn't you doing it. It's like trying to control. I mean, if you've been driving for a long time, try and do it consciously. It's weird. It's awkward.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that make sense, guys? Any other questions based on that? Then we're going to have a quick break because I want everyone to stand up and stretch, and then we'll come back. We're going to dive into another demo. Has anyone got any questions about what they saw? Knowing that, we've only scratched this much of the surface. Okay, we're going to look at what happens next. Any other questions on that?
Yeah, I do want to ask a question.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nikki.
I know, I was just going to say, it's interesting because in ACH, we're just using open-ended questions, aren't we? Who, what, why, or not hardly why, obviously why differently, but who, what, when, why.
Yeah. The difficulty comes like a lot of it is just asking those questions and having a client respond to them. But the difficulty becomes is you ask a question and you try and steer the conversation or do something with it. Here's the funny thing. I don't care ever about solving my client's problem. I don't care, because if I do, I go into fix-it mode. And fix-it mode is a very hard place to be as a therapist. I don't care whether they solve the problem, hate me, love me, report. I don't care about any of that stuff. All I care about is I know you have a problem. I know there's a conflict. I'm curious about what that is. And I just ask questions accordingly. Does that make sense? Shijo, go for it.
Yeah, so when it comes to different triggers, for example, anxiety or anything like that, would you say those are just different layers and the client will just figure it out? Like, okay, this trigger is coming. That's another layer for us, right?
Yeah, it's like dominoes. You push down one domino, eventually they all fall over. Same thing here. We always just have to start at the symptom level. And from there, anything can happen. Anything. It could have 1 knot, 10 knots, 100 knots. You'll see them all start to collapse. And all I'm doing along the way is just finding out what is conscious, what is unconscious. What am I paying attention to? What am I ignoring?
Gotcha.
Makes sense? Natasha.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to know, if somebody's on medication, does that affect it?
Yeah, see, I'm not sure about that. I would say somehow it would. There are some doctors, medical doctors in the group, Natasha. It's a great question to ask. Type it in the group. I'm sure one of them would answer, but there's no real concrete evidence that I've seen or heard about that would let me know otherwise. So I couldn't say. I would say,
No.
Is it a no, is it?
It doesn't. And that will become your own block.
Ah, there we go. Okay. Now, you've got to remember the
start to believe
scope.
that.
We won't talk about scope as far as I wouldn't be working with clients on medication, or that I wouldn't do that anyway, because that's part of the scope and legalities. But I would say the only time it would inhibit it is if a client is like flat drunk, where they can't even string a word together. That would cause some issues. But medication, I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Mickey, go for it.
Just a quick question about, we've got visual and auditory unconscious moments. Is there another category, like when people get sensations and they'll sort of say, I've got a lump in my throat, or I can feel something moving through my back, or
Yeah, so we'll get to that. We call that the ETM. I gave it, it's called emotional trance method. It's just when a client physically reacts to what's going on. And that's sort of a mixture of visual and auditory. So we'll definitely look at that. That actually happened with Nikki as well. And I'll show you guys how to navigate that. But playing with someone's emotions or their sensation, what it is, if a client starts to feel something, that's the unconscious moment expressing itself. So if a client says, oh, Mickey, like my stomach is just feels so knotted up, it's uncomfortable. That's the unconscious mind in action. It's doing something with the context of the session.
I felt sick.
Yep. That's part of it. What we do want to avoid, which I see a lot, is people try and, like in Nikki's case, let's say Nikki said, oh, my stomach feels really sick. And then the therapist will say, okay, what color is it? What's the name you would give it? What do you want to do with it? I'm not going to tell her what to do with it. I'm just going to say, hey, I notice it's there too. So be it. And it will sort itself out. It's when we start giving meaning to things that aren't there that can actually create another knot.
Okay, and you said this is something we're going to cover more later anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we, like I said, we jumped forward. We actually went about 5 or 6 layers forward, but it is what it is. We haven't even really looked at the questioning phase yet. It's just because it came up, we had to use it.
Nice one.
Because me and Nikki have been rehearsing it for the last 5 days, so it looks good. So good acting. People have accused me of it, so why not? Ainsley, go for it.
So one of a lady that I'm currently working on at the moment, what do you do? What I find that in the sessions, that when I'm trying to pick out the unconscious moments and I'm asking the questions, before I know it, it's like she's moved on from that and she's talking about something else, and she gets me like a bit confused. And like I found myself really like thinking, where the hell are we going with this? And I just, you know.
Yeah, this is what happens when it's not a glib statement, but it's true. It's when you try and do something with the information they give you. When you go looking for something certain, that's when you'll miss it.
Yeah.
I had that happen. Sorry to butt in. I had that happen when I had a session with Sally, which is how obviously I found out about Scott and everything else. And I was talking 1,000 to the dozen, and I was coming out with so much conscious stuff. And Sally we'd start working on a part, and then I've gone off on a tangent. Sally, and if from what you're saying, this is obviously similar to what's happening with you, the client's gone on to something else. What Sally said to me was, hold on, slow down. I want to talk about something you said. I want to revisit something you said. Can you just slow down? Let's slow your breathing down. And then she went and asked me again and pulled me back to what that was.
You rudely interrupt your client. If they're talking too much and you see an unconscious moment, you go, whoa.
Yeah. And she said to me, come on, let's just bring it down. I want to bring you down. I want to bring you down. I want to take something you've said further. So then that pulled me back.
Yeah,
stopped me in my tracks, shut me up, and it slowed me down for her to then go into that. So you could try that.
Yeah, and I think as well that thank you for that, because I think as well I've been going to the client's house, and I think I found myself in when they've come to me, or if I'm doing it online, I'm the one that's the therapist, I suppose, and I think I slipped into trying to be nice and have a conversation as such, if you know what I mean. So yeah,
that's what I mean about this whole you've got to get rapport and do this and you've got to understand each and all that. No, you don't. Just ask the questions. Get rid of the therapy mindset. Ask the questions. As soon as you go into fix-it mode, it gets very, very tough. Okay, but what we'll do, guys, we're going to have a 10-minute break. You're welcome to stay here and chat. I'll turn my camera microphone off. Same link. We won't cancel the link. Come back in 10 minutes. It's still recording, so just be careful what you say. I'm still recording. Back in 10 minutes, guys, and we'll get into the next demo. Okay, see you guys soon.